Alright, hi, hello. There's no skit or bit or funny kind of intro this week. However, I do want to highlight something that I did. Looky here. I did make Vivian her own Onibaba mask to wear for the review, so why would I wear the mask? Okay, well anyway, hey, subscribe, because what other movie reviewer, not just YouTuber, but what other movie reviewer is making costumes for their Monchichi based on the film that they are currently reviewing? Name me one. I can't think of one. Subscribe.
It's a Friday once again.
Hello, my fellow freaks, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you have all had a splendid, wonderful week. This week is yet another viewer suggestion, and it's another one that it's no normal viewer. But this week's film is suggested or recommended to me by my buddy from college, John. This week is his birthday, and we both really like horror movies. I know he especially really loves Japanese horror, and I basically had to hold him at gunpoint to get recommendations from him, because he mentioned to me how he wants to leave comments of recommendations and then he doesn't, and I'm just like, I'm literally hoarding films. And so for this week he gave me 3 suggestions, all of which he thought were like of equal quality to each other. Like he said, I like these 3, if you choose any of these 3 I would dig it, or whatever. Those films that I had to choose from were Demon Pond, Black Cat, and what is this week's film, Onibaba, from 1964 and directed by Kaneto Shindo. The other 2 films that he recommended I would also eventually like to get to because they sounded really interesting, and so at some point I am going to get to the other 2 that he recommended to me at some point on this channel. However, I decided to choose Onibaba because it's such a, I think it's a classic. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it's part of the Criterion Collection, so it has to in some form be a piece of classic Japanese horror cinema. And I had never really heard of it before. Like, I do like Japanese horror, but I'm not as in-depth into it as other people, at least not yet. And so the only time I have heard of Onibaba was there's an actor who bought the rights to it that was going to remake it, and then he ended up not doing it. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was Willem Dafoe who bought the rights to Onibaba and was going to remake it and then ended up not doing it because he didn't want to fuck up how good the original is.
Because it's so specific to its time, and I felt like any time I tried to put a spin on it, I ruined the source material, so I couldn't do that.
And on props, dude. Like, more fucking sense than half of Hollywood. Thank you. But anyway, I chose this because it's like one of the classics, and I feel like I've done quite a few Japanese horror movies on the channel so far, and I know I'm going to be doing more. And I feel like before we get further into it, I need to give some attention to some of the classics of the Japanese horror genre, which I just haven't gotten to see yet. And Onibaba seems like it's a pretty big deal. I've been made to believe that this film is a very big deal. I mean, it's part of the Criterion Collection. Come on. So let us get right into I don't know, I think it's gonna be a fun discussion about Onibaba. This film wasn't exactly what I was expecting it to be, but I ended up, we'll get into it. But first, if you are new here, hi, my name is STARGUTZZZ. Any crashing or loud noises, whatever you might hear happening in the background, those are my cats. And also, my movie reviews tend to be more of a discussion of elements that I find are good or bad about a film, rather than just giving you this like play-by-play of every single little thing that happens. So in other words, I try to refrain from spoilers as much as possible, but they will arise as they pertain to the discussion that I want to have with the film. I might be covering spoilers. I don't know if what I'm specifically going to be talking about will be considered a spoiler. I don't know know if you could spoil this film because it is a little bit predictable, and a lot of the other synopses that I saw online kind of gave a few things away about it, so I don't know, but just be aware of that. If you would like to watch Onibaba before the rest of this review, let me first give you a warning. I need to warn you guys about the dog. The dog dies. I wasn't expecting it because I guess I wasn't expecting this film to have anything with animals in it, but there is just like it's a very quick moment. It's done very fast, and it's not really like graphic or brutal, but I think it would definitely shock a few people who are sensitive to animal stuff. I wasn't expecting it, so especially with how quick it happened, I was just like, whoa, hold up. What? Now currently, because I mean this is like a big time picture, so of course it's not going to be on Tubi. I'm so sorry. However, if you have an HBO Max subscription, it is available on HBO Max. You can also rent it or buy it through Prime, but of course you can also purchase it on the Criterion Collection website on DVD. And if you're a pirate, I look the other way. And with that, let us jump right into this review. Set during Japan's destructive civil war of the 14th century, Onibaba focuses on two poverty-stricken women who resort to killing and stealing from lost samurai to make ends meet. And just for some context, these two women, one of them is an older mother, the other one is this mother's daughter-in-law. However, when their neighbor returns from the war alone and not with their beloved son and husband, Kichi, tensions begin to rise. Although not due to the truth regarding Kichi's death, rather because the neighbor Hachi and the daughter-in-law quickly begin sleeping together. This causes Kichi's mother to do anything necessary to keep the lovers apart. Now, before we go on to the rest of this review, let me express my mild frustration. I would not exactly describe myself as someone who is a feminist. However, can I express my frustration that these two women are the main characters and they don't get names? Now, before I go on this little bit of a rant, which does have a purpose, before I go on this rant, let me emphasize the fact that these women not having names does not negatively impact my opinion of the movie, okay? I know that sometimes it is the point of the film for a character to like not have a name. I don't think this is one of those times. I think they could have easily had names, no problem, and it wouldn't have impacted anything because like every random man that we come across has a name. I won't say every, because people are going to take me so literally because I'm a literal person, I get it. Not literally every single man, but for example, Kichi himself is technically he does not exist in the movie. He is just talked about. The minute he is introduced is within a conversation where he's already dead. So technically, Kichi does not even exist in the film, but he gets a name. And these two women who are our main characters, they get credited as Kichi's mother and Kichi's wife. It's just a mild frustration because it would take no effort to just give them a name. They are such great characters too. They're our main characters. They're good characters. Their only sense of identification is dead guy's mother and dead guy's wife. Dead guy who gets a name despite not being in the movie. And like I said, this doesn't impact my opinion of the film. It's just a frustration. These are really good female characters. I like them a lot and I feel like they deserve to be more. I just think they deserve to be more than the mom and the wife of somebody who doesn't even exist in the film. And so when I talk about Kichi's mother, I will be calling her Otowa because that is the actress's name. And likewise with Kichi's wife, I will be calling her Yoshimura. Yoshimura. So just keep that in the mind throughout this review. I like these characters. They deserve names. And so if the film's not gonna give them names, I will. And again, there are instances where a character not having a name is the point. I can't think of an argument where that would be the point for Onibaba. I don't know. Maybe if somebody has a good argument for it, share it. I'll listen at least. I won't say I'll accept it, but I'll at least listen. That's it. That's all I wanted to share. Let's get the show on the road, let's start this review. First and foremost, I believe this film is the casual moviegoer's absolute nightmare. What do I mean by that? I mean, the people whose entire lives and interests are not focused or centered around a love for the cinema. It's the people who, like, if they go to see a movie, they're probably just seeing the blockbusters. They're very casual about their intake of film. They're not, honestly, they're normal. They're not foaming at the mouth insane like me. They're normal, okay? The normal people who, the normal consumption of film. And in my experience, these casual moviegoers or movie watchers are a little bit less receptive to some things, such as the film being in black and white, the film being incredibly slow-paced, and the film being in a foreign language, aka you have to, God forbid, you have to read. Despite the fact that quite a few people nowadays put subtitles on for their English shows to help them focus, Lord forbid we can't read dialogue of a foreign film. It's too much. I guess that's just crossing a line. I don't know. I digress. Onibaba has all three. Black and white, very, very slow paced, and it's a Japanese film, so sorry you have to read to watch this one. I think just at a baseline, you're probably only going to enjoy Onibaba if you are a cinephile. And I hope that most of the people here are cinephiles, because I sure as hell am. The thing is, it's not even just like casual moviegoers I don't think would like this. I'm not even 100% sure if I could recommend this one to a casual horror movie enjoyer. And here's why. Onibaba is a drama first and a horror movie second. I had to make sure I was saying that right. It is very first and foremost, it is a melodrama focused on human emotions and relationships. And then secondly, like the last 20 to 30 minutes, does it implement some more horror elements to it. Although I will say that throughout, it does at least have like a kind of eerie, foreshadowing, foreboding, if you will, tone throughout that I did really enjoy. Although I wouldn't say that the horror really kicks up until the last 20 to 30 minutes. And one of the first things that I noticed about Onibaba was the drama. It is a very dramatic film, like melodrama. It really reminded me of melodramas from the 40s and 50s, like, you know, maybe Joan Crawford would be starring in. I mean, I'm sure you could tell from the synopsis that this film is primarily focused on a love affair happening. And I mean, from that, you're gonna get a lot of melodrama. And boy, does this film deliver with the drama, even with like the makeup and stuff. Like Ottawa's character, oh my god. Her eyebrows are everything. I'm so obsessed with her eyebrows and her eye makeup and the streaks of white in her hair. You know, for somebody who's supposed to be a hag, they casted the sexiest woman I have ever seen. Now, you may think that it is a criticism that I'm sitting here saying like, oh, it's not really horror, it's way more drama, it's a melodrama, blah, 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 blah. But honestly, it's not. Listen, I'm sloppy. I like a good drama picture. Oh my god, especially old black and white dramas, I eat it up, okay? It's not a bad thing for me, at least, that this has more drama than horror, but I am highlighting it because it might be a problem for other people. However, Onibaba does, like I said, maintain like an eerie, foreboding tone throughout it that I think does link with horror. However, again, it doesn't really pick up on the horror until right around the end, and it is paired with a lesson. Now, of course, I think on the second watch, usually what happens is I appreciate the film a lot more than the first watch. The first watch, it's me just kind of figuring out what's even happening. And then upon the second watch, I can appreciate some of the things more, and I have a clearer understanding of what it is that I'm being presented with. And I won't lie, my first watch of Onibaba, John, I'm sorry, my very first watch of Onibaba, I was very disappointed. But I won't lie, I was disappointed because I was expecting it to be more horror centric, and it's definitely while it has that airy tone throughout, it's more of a horror towards the end of it. But I feel like I could appreciate the fact that it's not completely horror the second time I watched it. And I do feel like after my first watch, I did research some more on like the Onibaba folklore. Now, not extensively, don't try to quiz me in the comments, but I did look up enough to have some better understanding and also like learn about the crow symbolism that happens throughout the film, which is like a really cool touch and I love it. However, after that first watch, getting to understand the folklore more and then watching it a second time, I think it makes complete sense why it's more of a drama than horror, or it's drama first and horror second. So, hi, my name is STARGUTZZZ. I went to college. I have my master's degree in English language and literature. So in other words, I spent about six and a half years of my life analyzing literature and films. And during this time period of me being in school, I was so incredibly lucky enough to be in a class that focused on fairy tales and folklore. If you do not know this, or maybe if you've just like never thought about it, majority of horror movies that we watch are essentially fairy tales when you break them down. And maybe the very easiest example that I could give of this is Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street is just a fairy tale. I mean, think about it. Really think about it. Because we talked about it in this class. Nightmare on Elm Street is a fairy tale. But my favorite example of a horror movie that's a fairy tale is Skinamarink. And I have no doubts in my mind that I will eventually make a big ass video about Skinamarink. But I think it's a really fun, cool example because Skinamarink is a very subtle retelling or reinterpretation, reimagining of the Hansel and Gretel story. Now, side note here, I'm not saying that all horror movies or most horror movies are based on specific fairy tales. I'm not saying that they are based on specific fairy tales. I am saying that they themselves, the way they are constructed and the elements that get included, that's what makes it a fairy tale. Like their own fairy tale, not always sometimes copying stuff, but not always. In fact, majority of the time, it's not, they're just making their own fairy tale pretty much. And I feel like, I mean, Onibaba is based on Japanese folklore, and folklore fairy tales kind of go hand in hand. And like pretty much all of folklore and all of fairy tales, it comes with a very strong word of caution or a lesson that is learned at the end of it. I'll admit I did skim a few other people's reviews on IMDb. I always kind of just do a quick little skim of what the first, like, I don't know, 4 reviews on an IMDb page for a film has, just to get like a general idea of maybe what some other people are saying about it. And the one word that showed up over and over for Onibaba was jealousy. Personally, I'm not going to talk a whole lot on the jealousy aspect of it because I'm going to be honest, I didn't see a lot of jealousy taking place. That doesn't mean it's not there. Just because I didn't see it and I didn't interpret it that way doesn't mean it's not present, because obviously there's a lot of people who are talking about the jealousy in this film. And I think there are like a few little moments that I caught where I'm like, okay, well, I think somebody could probably derive jealousy from this action or that one or whatever. However, what I interpreted this, like, what do you want to call it? The conflict? What I interpreted the conflict being around was not exactly jealousy. It was more focused on Ottawa trying to control somebody else's life. Overall, I kind of interpreted a lot of Ottawa's actions and motives to be her like genuinely trying to protect Yoshimura from a guy that doesn't seem trustworthy. And listen, okay, I know Hachi ends up not doing anything wrong. He ends up not doing anything wrong, which is surprising. Listen, for a big chunk of this, I was on Ottawa's side. I'm like, nah, this guy is bad news. I agree with her. And it's because Hachi, I don't know why, but both times I watch this, Hachi gives me such bad vibes. Like, if they want the audience to root for Hachi and Yoshimura, then should they not, you know, make Hachi seem somewhat likable? Because to me, I just got bad vibes. And to me, he just seemed like a gross pervert.
お前はまだ若いんじゃからの。どうじゃい。わしんとこへ遊びに来いや。 え
So I was on Ottawa's side about being like, yeah, no, fuck this guy. I was initially surprised that she was the bad guy. However, after the second watch, even though I'm on her side, I do agree she is still the bad guy. And here's why. Ottawa was not minding her own business. She was trying to take complete control of somebody else's life, which she has no right to do. For me, rather than seeing Ottawa as some sort of like jealous old hag, which again, for a hag, she's gorgeous. But that is neither here nor there. Stop thinking about how beautiful Ottawa is. Wait, no, fun fact, Ottawa and this director got married 14 years after this film. She was his mistress for a while before his wife divorced him, and they immediately got married and stayed married until Ottawa's death. What a lucky man. I didn't see Ottawa as being like this jealous old hag. What I saw instead was somebody who just doesn't know how to mind her own business. She's very controlling. She meddles, and they use that word too. I think it's very fitting for her. She is a meddler. She is meddling in other people's lives and other people's affairs. You can disagree with somebody all you want, but don't be meddling in it. Ultimately, it is not her life, and it is not her business, and it is not her control. And because of this, because of how I saw Ottawa, I also saw the lesson of Onibaba being more focused on, like, not meddling in other people's lives. Like, don't mess with other people's lives. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and you can try to control it, but it's not going to change anything. Here's the thing. Maybe Hachi really is a bad person. Maybe Kichi really still is alive somewhere. And maybe Hachi did truly have something to do with Kichi's death. But at the end of the day, Kichi isn't there. Even if he had something to do with his death, there's no way for us to... It's the 14th century. There's no way to know. No way to know at all. And so if he is a bad person, and if he is responsible for Yoshimura's husband's death, and Yoshimura then decides to have like a love affair with somebody who was like close friends with her husband, who may or may not... What my point here is, that's her prerogative. That's her lesson to learn if it ends up being true. And listen, if I have learned one thing in this life, sometimes, if not a lot of the time, you can try to help a person. You can try to give them advice, but at the end of the day, you just need to let people make their own decisions. You cannot force advice and help onto other people. They have to want it themselves. And this is where Ottawa goes wrong. Ottawa is extremely controlling of Yoshimura and what she should or should not be doing. She lectures her, she watches and kind of stalks her, she fearmongers her, she threatens her with like a belief of death and demons coming after her for a love affair because her and Hachi are not married.
男と女がすることは見とらじゃない。みんなしとるんじゃ。決められたもんがするんはええんじゃ。決められたもん同士はの。なんぼしてもの。
And then by the end of the film, she goes all the way into scaring Yoshimura from seeing Hachi. And again, in my experience, the more you try to control another person and stop them from doing something that you don't want them to do, the more they are just going to do it. And I mean, that's what ends up happening. You can't control another person's life. Another person is gonna do what they're gonna do. Control is a byproduct of anxiety, and Ottawa's character is extremely anxious about just the thought of Yoshimura leaving her because she believes that she can't kill without her, she can't survive without her, and that all might be very valid, but she can't control Yoshimura's life just because of her own anxiety. And that is what I interpret to be what the lesson is. And because she is so anxious about Yoshimura possibly leaving her and abandoning her, this causes her to meddle really hard in this affair. And again, just try to control it and try to control what Yoshimura is doing with her life. And yeah, jealousy is probably somewhere in there, especially because the relationship between Ottawa and Yoshimura does remind me of Mother Gothel and Rapunzel. Like there are quite a few, we're talking about fairy tales. I mean, that right there is a parallel between this narrative and like a more popular fairy tale. It is, I mean, they really are kind of like Mother Gothel and Rapunzel. She's trying to force her to stay enclosed or stay with her forever. While there are like many interpretations that you could probably draw from this film and what its lesson is, what I took away the lesson as being is just like, mind your own business. Don't meddle in other people's lives. Like, don't control another person. And like most folklore and fairy tales, the message is very timeless. This like message of someone needing to just mind their own business and not meddle in another person's life has not only been happening for centuries, but will probably continue to happen for centuries. And in the time of social media, I feel like this lesson or this message is even more prominent than ever. Like, people meddling in other people's lives is way more prominent than maybe it's ever been before. More like world spread, like wide world, globally spread. It's to the point where it's like almost considered a hobby that people meddle in other people's lives. You don't believe me? Lol cows. Now, I'm not going to go into like the depth and the nuance of a full lolcow discussion, because that's not what this video is. But I do want to highlight one of them that I think is a good example of people just making it their hobby to meddle in this person's life for no reason. And that is rest in peace to the great King Cobra JFS. Now again, I'm not gonna go into the nuances of lolcows right now, but I want to highlight King Cobra JFS because he is one of those lolcows who is probably like the least deserving of any kind of harassment. Like, people make it their hobby to have meddled in his life. Rest in peace, my guy. I forgot what I was even saying now. He is an example of how people just like meddle in somebody's life or harass somebody just as a hobby now. And I feel like Onibaba is a tale of caution towards people who want to do that, because guess what? You're gonna be an old fucking hag. You're gonna be an old hag by meddling in other people's lives. And I think out of like all the possible lolcows that could be out there, King Cobra, like, what was his crime? He was kind of weird. It's kind of like here, like there wasn't a crime. There was no crime that Yoshimura and Hachi were doing. Although Ottawa keeps like using religion especially to try and keep her away from Hachi, ultimately what they were doing was not wrong. And I think I think the ending, it proves that like they aren't doing anything wrong and you're gonna be punished for fucking with other people's lives. Mind your business. It feels so weird to like mention King Cobra as an example, but I thought that he would be a good example for like, I suppose like what am I trying to say, man? I thought out of many of the lolcows that I could use, King Cobra was the best example of how people will just like make it their hobby to fuck with other people's lives and not mind their own business, even when it's against somebody who like isn't even doing anything wrong. They're just, the people who are meddling in their lives, they just don't agree with what the person's doing, even though like what the person's doing, it's like making weird food. Anyway, maybe I might have digressed. I hope there was something cohesive within me mentioning that. I hope that had some kind of substance to it. I'm just trying to use him as an example of, you know, how this lesson could still be like used and be prevalent today. This is my point. The lesson is so timeless. I haven't even noted everything that I like or appreciate about this film, but I did want to have a very big focus on like the folklore and the lesson learned at the very end, because I feel like that is what is the most prominent aspect of this film. This is a great adaptation of Folklore, and it's gorgeous. Like that's one thing that I didn't really get to touch on. I think I could have made a section touching on it, but it would have been really short, so I might as well just throw it in here at the conclusion. This film is gorgeous. I know it's just in black and white, but I think this might be the most beautiful black and white film I have ever seen. I've watched a lot of black and white films. I like black and white films, and I feel like what stands out about Onibaba with the cinematography is how intense the contrast of the black and white is. Like, it is such a stark contrast between like solid blacks and like grays and whites. It's gorgeous. Like, I don't know. I really don't think I've ever seen a black and white movie so beautiful. Like, this is gorgeous. It is truly like one of the most beautiful and mesmerizing. This film it might be slow paced, but it is mesmerizing. Also, there is this really cool effect that happens throughout the film where we get some light shining on Ottawa's eyes, and it really reminds me of Morticia Addams. It's specifically the Addams Family movies that were from like what, the 90s maybe? And that effect to me, like, oh god, it just killed me, especially with her eye makeup and how her eyebrows are done. It's so beautiful. Even Yoshimura, when we first see Yoshimura, she looks very boyish, and then she definitely gets more feminine as the film progresses. But if you cannot handle like a film with a very slow pace, it's about an hour and 40 minutes long, and elements of horror don't really take place until the final 20 to 30 minutes. So keep in mind, it's a very slow pace, and most of it I would consider is build up for what the end is. But if you can't handle a slow pace, if you can't read subtitles or dialogue, and if you don't like black and white movies, Onibaba is your nightmare. But if you are a cinephile, if you love movies just for like the love of the game, I mean, there's a very clear reason why Onibaba is in the Criterion Collection. It's a gorgeous film. It's beautifully shot. Like, there's nothing bad exactly that I could say about it other than like, oh, it's not like a super horror movie. It's not scary, and we end up like, we know who the monster is, whatever. It is a beautiful work of art with a timeless lesson put at the very end of it. And again, I'm not Japanese, obviously, but I think it's a good interpretation of Japanese folklore. I don't know, I like it. I definitely appreciate it. I'm not crazy about it, and I don't know how many more times I'll end up rewatching it, but I mean, like, I do like it, and I do really appreciate all of the work and the artistry and everything that went into creating this film. And again, it's clear to me why this is chosen as part of the Criterion Collection. Like, it's chef's kiss. So what tier am I going to be placing Onibaba? I feel like this is probably kind of obvious, but I'm going to put Onibaba at the A tier. Now, initially I was going to do B tier just because like I don't feel crazy about it, and again, I don't know how many times I'm going to end up watching it. However, it felt wrong to put it in the B tier because so much of it is technically so incredible. It's so well done. It felt wrong putting it in B just because I personally wasn't crazy about it. And so for that, I'm going to be giving it the A tier. I think that's at least the minimum that it deserves, right? And I definitely understand why it's such a classic piece of Japanese horror. And with that, we are done with yet another movie review. Thank you guys so much if you stuck around all the way until the very end. Also, thank you so much for my buddy John, and also happy birthday. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I also cannot wait to get to the other two films that you recommended eventually. I have a big list of films to go through. Listen, I'm gonna have to start doing at least 2 viewer suggestions a month to start getting through this list some. Although I'm probably not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it in October. I have a plan for October. And I'm not gonna do it in December because I have a plan for December. Maybe I'll do it in November. Once January hits 100%, just about every month for a while, there's gonna be at least 2 viewer suggestions a month so that I can start getting through some recommendations. But anyway, thank you again to John. I really enjoyed this film, and thank you for giving me the recommendation. If you liked this video, please make sure that you stab that like button. It is a free and easy way to help support this channel, and I appreciated it so much. Also, if I just talked about movie recommendations, if you have a film recommendation that you would like to see pop up on the channel, put it in the comments and maybe it'll show up. Who knows? Also, if you just enjoyed this video so much that you want to hear me ramble about more B-movies, disturbing cinema, obscure movies, Japanese horror. I touch on a little bit of everything. I even touch on some modern stuff. I am eyeballing the Jesus horror movie. Don't worry, I'm eyeballing it. It's probably gonna happen. But if you would like to just let's just say ramble about movies. If you would like to hear me ramble about more films, please consider hitting that subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I make a new upload. And new reviews are every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On the screen are also some of my socials if you feel so prone to follow me on there. And thank you so much for anybody who even considers doing any of this. And I just want to give one final thank you so much for being here, for being present, for giving me your time. We really don't have a whole lot of time, and the fact that you have sat down and used your time to watch this video of me discussing the classic Onibaba, just thank you. I appreciate you, I appreciate your presence, and I appreciate you using your time to watch my video. If I do not see you in any posts on like Instagram, then I will see you in the next video. But until then, please have a good night and stay safe out there. I'm the Onibaba. I'm the Onibaba.